Hi all, today we're going to have a little chat about our laws and our systems that enforce and uphold these laws. So with me today, I am honored to have a person I call a friend, Richie, joining us, and he's with his son as well. So we have two people joining us to discuss this really great topic. So in the English-speaking Caribbean, we've inherited all these constitutions. Do you think it's time that we as independent countries have some major constitutional reforms, or maybe even throw out some of our constitutions and rewrite them from scratch? And this is also in light, I know that some of us would have had savings law clauses on our constitutions. So you could first probably explain what a savings law clause is.
Okay.
And then answer the question about if we're due for major constitutional reforms in our territories.
So I actually think it might be easier if I answer the questions in reverse.
Okay.
So we are all absolutely due for constitutional reforms. In fact, our respective governments recognize this fact as evidence by virtue of the reality that they have attempted to, in fact, have our constitutions updated and amended. Now, part of the difficulty is not only savings law clauses that I'm going to talk about, but the fact that when our constitutions were created, because it's probably literally the most important legal document, or governmental and administrative document in the country, the drafters of the Constitution put in clauses to ensure that no government in and of itself would just be able to change the provisions willy-nilly, or just be able to interfere with the rights outlined in the constitutions willy-nilly. And so what they did was essentially say that for any constitutional change, or for certain categories of constitutional changes, the important ones, including the ones that might affect our human rights listed in the constitutions, then there has to be both a special majority in our respective houses of parliament and a special majority in a plebiscite, in a referendum. But of course, you know how politicized our respective countries are. And so even for good things, even for good constitution, good amendments suggested to our constitution, a lot of those issues just got politicized. Let's say in Grenada, for instance, in 2017, it happened where the proposed amendments failed for that reason, because they weren't able to get the required public majority. Similarly in Bahamas and one or two other jurisdictions that I know of. So it's not, so yes, we are absolutely overdue for an update, but there are difficulties specific to the constitutions themselves, which make such an update impossible in certain circumstances, because it would mean essentially that both government and opposition would have to agree, which, as you know, is essentially impossible in our state of politics. And also that the various supporters, i.e. the public, will have to have a consensus, because it also requires they're doing a referendum and getting a particular majority in that instance. The issue of the savings law clause does not necessarily affect our ability to update, because once it is, for instance, that they get the relevant parliamentary and public majorities, then it would be easy to remove the sections called the savings law sections, but they are a hindrance for another reason. The reason being that they are in fact in our constitutions, and they interfere with our rights in this following way. So first, let me just start by explaining what they are. So there are two categories of what you call savings law clauses. The first category, which might be called non-absolute savings law clauses, apply in two contexts. So first of all, a savings law clause, generally speaking, is essentially a constitutional provision which says that again, the internet better here. No, I'm feeling hot, but the internet better here. Cutting out when I have to do. Yeah, sorry, Renee.
Yes, no problem.
So
life is going on around us.
Yeah. So a savings law clause is a constitutional provision which says that any law for a particular type of law or a particular type of thing that existed in place prior to the coming into the effect of the Independence Constitution cannot be constitutionally challenged by our courts. So remember earlier I had indicated that we are constitutional supremacies. So in effect, it means that even Parliament is subject to the courts and is accountable to the courts. So it's not that they can do whatever they want and get away with it. Whatever laws are passed have to essentially reconcile with the constitutional rights given to people in our constitutions. But some jurisdictions have these savings law clauses. So for instance, in Belize's case, their savings law clause essentially said that no law in effect prior to the coming into effect of their constitution could be challenged for 5 years after the independence. That has since expired because Belize has been, much more than 5 years after the independence.
Yeah.
Other constitutions like Barbados, like Grenada, say that no punishment that existed prior to independence is essentially challengeable before the court. So we have issues now with laws in Grenada that allow whipping, which happens as a legal form of punishment for adults, where challenges have been taken and the government is saying, hey, but this form of punishment is safe, which technically speaking is right. So it'll be interesting to see how our courts ultimately deal with that.
I know Barbados had a issue around, when we spoke about the death penalty, issues around that laws too. And I just want to quickly say, though we do have a public that still calls for these things to happen.
Same with Grenada, but I feel like, sometimes, issues, rights, or progress usually through vanguard movements. It's not that the public is immediately au fait, is immediately conscious enough to understand the issues and say, yes, I kind of see why this is the right way to go. There's often a lot of resistance and it kind of takes vanguard, whether it be judges or legislators, to push the issue and move society forward, and people understand the value of that after the fact, typically speaking.
Yeah.
The other type of savings law clause is called the general savings law clause, which is not restricted in time, as is the case with Belize, and which is not restricted to a specific form of punishment, as is the case in Barbados or Grenada, but essentially says all laws existing prior to independence cannot be challenged, which is a major problem, because a lot of these laws are problematic and our judges are biting at the bit to actually have them overturned. But in many instances, they see themselves as constrained by these savings law clauses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think the general public understands like the situation with the savings law clause, because it's not something that's usually talked about in public,
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate to learn a little bit about it through, engaging with persons like yourself. Can you briefly share like the setup of this court systems in the region? Like, what's the High Court, Court of Appeals? What's that look like for most of us?
Okay, so for most of us, I don't know if I could really speak about for most of us in that sense, because it's different, for instance, between Barbados, where you're from, and where I am from. In that, the setup is similar, but it's different administrative systems. So let me just speak about the general kind of structure. By and large, we have a three-tiered court system. At the very basic level, at the very bottom level, is the magistrates' courts. And they have what is called jurisdiction in legal terms, that is the power to determine certain kinds of matters, which is much more limited. So, to give a general rule of thumb, they deal with civil matters, with civil suits that involve $10,000 or less, a claim being made for $10,000 or less, or petty crime. So simple possession. Okay, all right.
No, he wants to be dumb. He's tired of being held.
He wants to juke up the laptop, which is a problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the magistrates courts typically deal with petty civil matters and petty criminal matters. The High Court deals with both the most substantive civil and criminal matters, so matters involving $10,000 above, which is the general benchmark in Grenada, or as far as criminal matters go, the most serious stuff, so murder, rape,
Yeah. Your serious crimes.
Exactly, serious crimes. The High Court also operates as what you call a court of appeal in relation to the magistrate's court. So for instance, even if, let's say, somebody was convicted of a petty criminal offense in the magistrate's court, which is where that type of matter is supposed to be heard, but they disagree with the decision and they feel that there is good legal ground to do so, then they can appeal to the High Court to essentially make a determination of whether or not the magistrate's court was wrong. But the High Court also has its own original jurisdiction where, based on the weightiness of the matter, you can't even go to the magistrate court. You just have to go directly to them. And in the Eastern Caribbean, well, let me speak about the Court of Appeal first. The next tier is the Court of Appeal, which only hears appeals from the High Court, or in some instances, even from the magistrate court. And the last tier is the Privy Council for some countries, or the Caribbean Court of Justice for other countries. So I think earlier I might have said a 3-tier system. I'm wrong. It's a 4-tiered system. So in the Eastern Caribbean, we have a shared Supreme Court. So it essentially means that our High Court judges or Court of Appeal judges or masters who determine administrative applications, that sort of thing, be all appointed, selected by a single commission, and the court is administered by a single authority, essentially, run out of St. Lucia. The judges are interchangeable, across jurisdictions, etc. And the Court of Appeal for the Eastern Caribbean is what you call an itinerant court. So they don't sit in any specific country, but they travel around the various jurisdictions that they serve to hear appeal matters. In Barbados, the system is more or less the same, save and except that Barbados has its own system, as opposed to Eastern Caribbean, which has its own system. Jamaica has their own system, Trinidad has their own system, but they more or less all set up in the same way.
Yeah, because the Eastern Caribbean would be the OECS nations that have their own court, but then the other countries have their, high court in their territory.
Exactly.
And then CCJ for some of us that have gotten the go-ahead to join, and we see the struggle for some of us to join the CCJ and move from Privy Council.
Yeah, well, part of that struggle actually relates to the discussion we were having earlier about constitutional amendment, because in the case of Grenada, for instance, the Privy Council is entrenched in our constitution as our final appellate court. So in order to get that shifted, it has to be the same special majority at Parliament, special majority at referendum, which people just, are not conscious enough to see the value of, in my view, and which they've rejected in 2017.
How do you get recourse in these systems if you feel something was handled inappropriately? I gotta break that down. Hold on, I'm gonna break down too, because I want to hear that for the police and I want to hear that for the judicial system. Right.
Well, concerning the judicial system, how you get recourse is by appeal. So by appealing to the higher court, and ultimately the buck stops at either the Privy Council or the CCJ. So if they agree with the initial decision that you found was a wrong one, then it's kind of too bad. As far as judicial redress goes, there's very little else. Well, really nothing else that can be done. But as far as the police goes, it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So some places like Trinidad have an independent police complaint authority to which complaints can be made. They have wide investigative powers, and then they can recommend to the police service their findings, whether they found the complaints were credible and what they think should be done. In other places like Grenada, it's the police themselves. So one can make a complaint to the community department of the police force or to the commissioner of police, where they would presumably then run their own internal investigations and kind of see what happens. Or alternatively, which is more and more being done, just public outrage and outcry, which has its place and which has worked and is working. It's worked for Grenada, right? The family I spoke about earlier, they got charged.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that now. And I mean, I saw the protests in Grenada online for that. And
I was there with my little boy too.
Very good. Very good. I actually think in this time we are seeing, because usually governments just wait till you do that, settle down, move
Yeah,
on. But I think we're seeing people that are saying that we're not going to settle down to something instead,
right.
um, which is a interesting time and a good time to be in because I think we are too accustomed to government.
Paying them.
Government is interesting. Government can come and say we are going to fix this road, and then you ask no more questions because
Yeah,
it's been said,
yeah,
and we don't hold them to accountability or timelines on how long it's going to take to fix this road or any of the questions around like who's doing it, why,
right,
how is it going to cost. We just go, okay, they said it. So I think
right,
we're in a time where we're asking more questions. We want to know how, why, when.
right.
Uh, So in the court system as well, you said like, okay, the High Court. Once we get to the Privy Council or CCJ, that's kind of it. Is there
Yeah.
any way you can go back and say, well, okay, I didn't get favorable ruling. I want to go back and push this
No,
again?
no. So not you per se. So in other words, let me kind of explain what can happen. What can happen is that you can have an appeal go all the way up to the CCJ or the Privy Council, and they decide it. You lose, you grumble, but judicially speaking, there's nothing more that you can do. But then later on, if a similar issue arises, the court might recognize. So that same highest court might recognize, you know what, you were wrong, and overrule a previous decision. And part of their ruling might be that persons who may have been affected by their prior wrong decision, ought to be compensated or redressed somehow. So justice can come in that form. But you are in and of yourself. Once you've exhausted all the forms of appeal available to you, there's nothing else you can do per se legally in relation to that specific matter.
Okay. And then for the police one, you had mentioned, all right, you go to a police complaints authority, which we have that kind of stuff in Barbados, or the police itself investigate. And
You
they
can
come
also
back.
sue. You can also sue. So there's always, approaching the courts to say that I'm suing the police force for assault and battery because they just meet me in the road. I was protesting. I wasn't doing nobody nothing. And two police just pulled me and beat me up. So besides making the complaints, which is disciplinary as regards to the police, you can also sue. All right. So
Actually,
that's that important to know.
actually, you said something very interesting. So there's a conversation going on in Barbados right now
Yeah.
where the police commissioner has basically said that the police do not or don't there's no such thing as police brutality, and anyone that's basically saying such is probably a criminal. And I will have
The Trinidad commissioner said the same bullshit.
right. So now we have tons of people that could tell you, even if they experienced themselves, their family members went through it, they either hear of it or whatever. It like Caribbean wise, I think this is across the Caribbean, can all agree that there is police brutality or situations when you're arrested that you are physically as some physical action is done to get you to behave or say even
That's widespread. That's widespread. That's definitely widespread across the Caribbean because I'm called in two jurisdictions, but I've operated as a researcher in multiple jurisdictions, and I can tell you for a fact that this is widespread. So even I won't say my vicarious experiences in Grenada through my clients. So I have had clients who have come to tell me, and this is as lawyer in a lawyer-client relationship. So they have no reason to lie to me. There's nothing that they're trying to gain. But where persons suspect them in a particular thing, tie a rope around their neck and tie it to the back of the van and threaten to drag them, unless they offer a specific response. I have no reason to disbelieve them. There's no benefit to them in lying to me about that. You see what I'm saying? So I absolutely believe them. And there have been constitutional cases decided. We have judgments on the books in all the Caribbean countries that acknowledge and establish that there is, in fact, police brutality. So I don't understand this argument of commissioners trying to deny it. Just see the problem for what it is, acknowledge it, and take real steps to fix the issue.
yeah, because I don't know, it's very frustrating to have the conversation with the police taking that stance, because when you even mention the police complaint authority or police internal investigation, they're investigating themselves, and so they will come back and say, well, these officers said this didn't happen. and then you're kind of just left there, because even when you said if they did find something, they usually probably make a recommendation. It's not like they can then say, oh, we have to lay charges or whatever. They can recommend to the same police.
Exactly.
So you have to still go back to the same people that are the people that you have an issue with.
Exactly.
You know,
Which is the problem. So that's one of the reforms I would suggest, that first of all, that the police complaints authority be independent in the way that it is, for instance, in Trinidad and Tobago. But not only that, but that they also have some sort of penal power, because that is what makes the Trinidad setup weak. Yes, they have wide investigative powers. They can subpoena people. They can demand documents and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's just a recommendation that they make into the commissioner. He's free to reject it and say, well, yes, you found it credible that the police killed these two men extrajudicially. You recommend that they be charged and dismissed, but guess what? I'm not going to do it. And there's nothing to be done from there except the family suing the police in civil court.
Yeah. Actually, here's what he said. He says he's against the notion that the Royal Barbados Police Force has a culture of brutalizing suspects. He argues to suggest otherwise would be taking words of an alleged criminal at face value.
Yes, but what does that mean? An alleged, you see, first of all, you see, them kicks here though, because they recognize that it's only an allegation. So in other words, they can't rightfully call the person a criminal.
Yeah.
But they want to introduce the fact of the allegation. Somehow discredit what they're saying. They say, well, you're taking the word of an alleged criminal. Okay, well, yes, and there might be circumstances where I, in fact, take the words of an alleged criminal over a police, depending on what evidence is available.
Even if they were guilty, I still think if it's true, there's something wrong with that.
No, I agree, because there is process, there is rule of law. Police can't just be the officers and the executioners, judge, jury, and executioner. That's not how it works,
Yeah. So I know that you have someone that really needs your attention.
Yeah.
And we've covered so much in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if anything, we can come back and chat again in the future.
All right, definitely.
Yeah, but it's always good talking to you. Good to see you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. And bye, little guy.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.